what I tried to do was kind of take that initially jubilant theme and start to tone it down and have it change character. So that same theme is in like really somber moments, and it actually does like a devolving as he's like walking away from the warehouse.
The first thing I wanted to ask was like, I know you've worked. This is your second time working with the director, right? With
Yeah.
Josh.
Yep.
So how did this kind of your collaboration compare on this to Star? Was it different? Did you have more free reign or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was different in a lot of ways. I think well, first of all, Barb and Star was a co-score, so like there was two of us giving ideas versus just me on this one, and also in Barb and Star, there was I think a lot more input from Kristen and Annie, who had co-wrote it, but it was great to have a kind of a shorthand or a frame of reference for this next film, especially in speaking about like some comedic beats, and we can refer back to like, okay, hey, remember what we did on this, or remember the first try of this. This not even something that ended up in the final. Like, remember the process of finding where this right timing was in a similar moment where there are starts and stops, and like finding how to best treat those moments. So it was great.
How early were you involved? Were you like seeing scripts and stuff, or did you come in after everything was shot?
Yeah, I read the script before my first meeting, and I saw before they had even started shooting. I think they started shooting shortly thereafter, and I was working on some kind of initial thematic ideas, I think, while they were shooting. So it was great to be involved really early on and really be able to kind of like percolate the information. I always like to kind of compare it to parenting in a weird way, because people have worked on films for so much longer than composers have. So I think when a composer gets a film, at the very, very end, it's like, okay, well, here, you feel more like a babysitter, like, okay, here's the baby, like, don't kill it, versus versus when you're brought on a little earlier, then you're like the fun, cool aunt. So you just get to live with the character and the stories a little longer.
Did you have to approach writing for each dog differently? Was that kind of how you conceptualized it?
I think at first we thought about doing that, but it became, a little too, Peter and the Wolf, I think, that approach. So what we ended up doing was having, a main theme for Reggie, which kind of became the theme of the film and of the journey, and really of the heart of the film. And then there was a theme for Bug, just because they were, the most disparate in characters. And then there were a couple of motifs for different relationships between different dogs, as like the PFF friends, and also something with Maggie and Hunter. But I think mostly I leaned on the Reggie theme, and some of Bug, because, Reggie was really the heart of the story.
I love the music. I mean, I love all of it, but I like really loved just the opening of the movie, because the music is so like part of the joke of just like Reggie's existence and his horrible owner. Yeah, like when he's super positive and like Will Forte's being horrible, and like the music is just so joyful. But when you do something like that, like, is it a challenge, or are you worried that like, because the music is part of this really funny thing early on, that it won't be as effective when it's like hitting an emotional thing later? Or do you not worry about it?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about the opening song that Nick Sorensen wrote, that's something that was kind of brought in at the beginning and then brought in at the end as kind of a bookend. But I don't think it was overused. And then, when the score comes in as he's, playing the game of Fetch. Yeah. No, I think what what I tried to do was kind of take that initially jubilant theme and start to tone it down and have it change character. So that same theme is in like really somber moments, and it actually does like a devolving as he's like walking away from the warehouse. Assuming this interview will come out after the movie has come out. Otherwise, spoiler alert. But yeah, so I think it's really about treating it differently, so it doesn't feel so upbeat all the time, because that is not, how he is the whole time.
I feel like you pulled in so much in terms of instrumentation. Like, I feel like there's like acoustic guitar, bells, chorus, orchestra. Like, what made you want to have such a broad spectrum of instruments?
Yeah, well, I think one thing we wanted to do was take the dogs as seriously as they took themselves. So moments when they think that like their life is at danger and God saw and he's about to attack them via fireworks, we want you to feel that. But then moments where it's a little more, kind of homeward bound, like walking through the woods and finding their journey, both literally and figuratively. We wanted to kind of have that homegrown kind of, Americana folksy feel to it as well. So yeah, it's just really kind of following what their emotions are and letting that dictate how big or small we get.
You get into like some kind of hip hop stuff with this as well, which like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume like you're doing just like more programming and beat making and stuff like that. Like, is that, do you find that easier or harder like than writing for orchestra stuff, I guess?
I mean, I studied orchestra and classical, and other things are things that I've kind of picked up along the way. And then, there are times where if something is so much in the bag of like a hip hop producer. So I worked with a couple of hip hop producers as well, DJ Cheap Shot and Spinowitz at Math Club. And we hired a beatboxer, Razel, which was really fun to do some work on it too. So I think it's like, this is a team sport. So, anything where I can bring more, authenticity by bringing in people that have really study this their whole lives, I will do that.
Let's say this will come out after the movie, because I'm curious, like, did you have a moment that was hardest to get right in terms of like, I guess, tone or carrying the emotion?
Yes, the fight. Not the fight against Doug, the fight, the inner fight between the dogs, and like finding that balance between tension and like, not being bigger than the moment, but still kind of like following their emotional beats, because there's a lot of beats in that scene. So it's funny. I think usually in most films, the scenes that take longer are that kind of like third act conflict. Maybe it's because I'm a non-confrontational person as myself, but it's a trend that I've noticed. So like, yeah, so I think that took the longest to kind of hone down the right tone, but I think we found it at the end.
The whole concept of this is so fun, and like there's almost no human characters. In terms of scoring, I know you've done some animation stuff. Like, did this feel almost more like doing an animation project, because it's just a little different?
In some ways, but I think in animation there's more like switching on a dime as far as like following that quick emotion and that quick emotion. And here I think it felt, it felt like, I think it felt more like a studio comedy than it does, as far as the pacing of things go, than animation. Because I think animation just has many more emotional twists and turns within a minute.
I'm afraid I know the answer, but did you get a chance to meet any of the dogs?
Well, actually, I didn't meet any of the adult dogs, no. But in the very beginning, there is a scene where, Will Forte first meets Reggie, and he's like this tiny little puppy. So Josh Greenbaum, the director, has that dog now. And he brought him in once to to the edit bay to one of our review sessions. So I did get to meet one dog.
That's perfect.
So far.
Yeah, yeah. There's still time.
Yeah.